Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 89 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author, media and PR coach, copywriter, editor and proofreader, and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content, events and training platform providing success tips for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, before we get into the main part of the show, I wanted to let you know that I've opened up enrolment again to my online PR course and group coaching program, Vegans in the Limelight. I ran the course for the first time earlier this year with a group of vegan business owners and entrepreneurs from across the globe over a 12-week period. And it now comes with a full 12 months of group coaching, including a monthly live question and answer call. You can also post your questions on the learning platform, and you can post your pitches to get feedback from me before you send them to journalists. So you've basically got me holding your hand, helping you to do your own PR for a full year. It's a great value program. It's way more affordable than similar courses, and it's the only one that's specifically aimed at vegan and plant-based business owners and entrepreneurs. Some of the current students have already got media coverage in mainstream and specialist newspapers, magazines, radio and TV shows. So if you'd like to get your vegan brand or yourself featured in the media, but you don't have the budget to hire a publicist or a PR agency, then I highly recommend you check out this program. You get full and immediate access to the materials as soon as you enroll. You can find out all the details by going to veganbusinessmedia.com and clicking on the link for the course Vegans in the Limelight. In this episode, I interview Robert Petrarca, co-founder and chief operations officer at Maxines Heavenly, a vegan cookie company in Los Angeles. The company is named after co-founder Tim Miller's mother Maxine, who took great pleasure in creating delicious sweet treats for the family. As Tim got older and started making cookies for his own children, he wanted to preserve the joy of his mother's baking, but adapt it for a healthier lifestyle. So he took out the processed flours and sugars, gluten and animal products, and replaced them with healthy plant-based alternatives, while still retaining the sumptuous flavours. Robert's background is in entertainment. He owned his own production company, and he's worked in theatre as a director. But when he tasted Maxine's cookies, which are also soy-free and only sweetened with coconut sugar, he was keen to come on board with the company. In this interview, Robert talks about how he and his team grew the company despite knowing nothing about the food industry, how prominently to feature the various free-from labels on products without scaring potential customers off, how to not only get your products into retailers, but maintain them there. Why focusing on smaller stores in the beginning is important, including for a business's cash flow, before approaching the larger retailers. How the company got lost in the Whole Foods market system for 2 years and what he learned from the experience. The challenges involved in co-packing and outsourcing manufacture of products to a third party, and much more. Here's the interview with Robert Petrarca from Maxines Heavenly. Hello, Robert. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Katrina. Happy to be here.
So I'm excited to learn more about Maxines Heavenly Cookies and the business journey in particular. So the first question I ask everyone who's a guest on the show is, what's the why? Why did you, because you're one of the co-founders of the business, why did you start it? What are your reasons for running the business?
Sure. It was it was pretty selfish, to be honest. I don't come from this world, the food world, but I'm a vegan, and it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. I was at my business partner's house, and he had made his mother's famous cookie recipe, and he wanted me to try them. And I was like, well, are there butter and eggs and all the other things in it? And he said, of course. And it's like, I'd love to try them, but I can't eat them because I don't eat those things. And so he was really he's such a great friend and has been for a while. And so he was like, well, why don't I play with making you a version? So he started to make a vegan version, and it kind of started this whole dialogue about the vegan options that are out there. And one of the things that we really landed on was like, I love being a vegan, but there are so many vegan foods that are just loaded with garbage. So like even in his quest to update this recipe, it's like, okay, I'm going to use like this vegan butter from a store that has a lot of ingredients that you're like a little apprehensive about, like what are all these additives to try to recreate, the feeling or the consistency of butter. So I started looking around and I'm like, all these vegan options, it's like white processed flours that have been bleached. It's these alternative butters. It's all these ingredients that I don't really want to put into my body. So we just started experimenting and replacing one by one with these healthy ingredients, and came upon our recipe, and we're like, wow, this is really good. This needs to be the new dynamic for vegan foods. It shouldn't be just about trying to recreate the original flavors. We also need to make healthy versions of these things that are nutrient dense, that are clean, and also give you the same tastes of the original product. So it's really this quest to have vegan, not to take on the assumption that vegan necessarily means healthy, but that you actually have to actively work to make the ingredients in vegan foods nutrient dense, healthy, and clean.
I love that. And I really like that combination, like you've mentioned, because, obviously as well, like we want people to embrace vegan foods and, to ditch that whole stereotype that they're boring or they're bland.
Right.
But at the same time, if we can make them good for people as well as animals and the planet, that's a real bonus. So I love your thinking and your philosophy behind that. And how cool that your friend was open to, veganizing his mother's recipe.
Yeah,
and you started a business around it. That's really fabulous. I love it.
It was very exciting. Actually, it was a very fun time. We probably went through so many different versions of the product before we landed on this. But yeah, we like to think of this as like it's the next generation of vegan. It's like vegan started off with just, at least in my lifetime, let's just try to replicate. And we didn't really consider what things we're using to do that. Well, now we're in a time where food has evolved, food technology has evolved, and we can do these same things in a cleaner, healthier way.
Sure. And what about the name? So is Maxine, is that your friend's mother's name, or
That's exactly right.
It is. Oh, lovely. So she's still got her stuff out there, and it's veganized. That's so cool. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and that's another part of our philosophy. It's like taking the past and adapting it for today. So not saying, oh, well, we can't do cookies or we can't do these things because our lifestyle and with regard to food has changed. It's saying, okay, well, now how do we adapt this for today? And then you honor yesterday, but you acknowledge today.
Beautiful. I love that. Absolutely love that. So who, in terms of your clientele then, Robert, who are your main customers? Are they predominantly vegans, or are they just like regular people who just like a good cookie?
Well,
a healthy cookie?
Absolutely. It's a great question. We're lucky because we capture a lot of different categories. In addition to being vegan, we actually are also gluten-free. So we open up this whole other category of vegan.
Oh, okay.
So we can isolate vegans, we can isolate gluten-free. And then there's also a growing sect of gluten-free vegans. We also are soy-free, and we're also, we only sweeten with coconut sugar, which is like a lower glycemic index sugar that's really good for people watching their sugar levels. So for us, we're in this unique position where we can kind of attract people from all those different categories. I would say, though, we've put a lot of attention into the vegan market just because it's such a passionate group of people, and because I'm a vegan myself. So we've spent a lot of time at like vegan festivals and vegan promotional events. So I think, even though we don't have an exact way of gauging, I think that it's probably our strongest, if not, one of our top two strongest categories.
Got it. And it's great, as you say, you can appeal to those other markets, and also I guess that more general healthy consumer market, which is continuing to grow, which is fantastic. So where are your products? Oh, sorry, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, but also we have opened up interest from people who aren't vegan, who aren't gluten-free. I really believe in our products. We're soft baked. We really taste like a fresh cookie. That's good, period. It just happens to be vegan. And And
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
what we like to say, because sometimes you say that word and people go,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that. It reminds me of the time when my dad, he's dead now, but years ago, when I've sort of not been long vegan, and he loved his, sausage and mash, very working class family. I remember I went along and we invited him up for dinner to our apartment in London at the time, and I made him like his sausage and mash, and I said, "Here you go," and he ate it, and I said, "Oh, how was your sausage and mash?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it was lovely, dear." And I said, "Oh great, they were actually vegan sausages." And he went, "What?" He said, "Oh, I thought they tasted funny." I said, "You just said that you loved them." And it's like, psychologically, it's bizarre, isn't it? That
this is making me laugh so hard. First of all, Katrina, our fathers would get along very well, because I remember specifically all these years ago when I first discovered Uncle Eddie's vegan cookies, which is another vegan brand that's been around for a long time. And I gave my father, when I came home for the holidays, and I was like, you have to try this cookie. It's so good. And I did not say the word vegan, so I just gave it to him. He started eating it, and he's like, And I was like, and they're vegan. And he's like, I don't like them. And mid-chewing changes his opinion.
So funny, isn't it? The way we can convince ourselves of things. But that's funny.
Yeah, that's funny that you have such a similar story.
Absolutely. So whereabouts are your products sold, Robert? Are they predominantly in the US or predominantly in California? Whereabouts are they carried?
Exclusively in the US for now. We haven't put together any distribution or shipping models that allow us to go outside of the United States. But we are predominantly in California, just because that's where we are and that's where we've continued to grow. But we are also in Washington and Oregon and Arizona and Utah, a couple stores in Texas, and we are moving into some Hawaii stores next month.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. That's great. So when you first started the company, what were some of your key challenges?
Well, we were both very stupid. So my business partner, he came from computer software, and I actually came from the entertainment industry. So I had a production company up in in Northern California, and so our biggest challenges were that we didn't really know what we were doing, and we didn't know this industry. I mean, we both had a really strong entrepreneurial spirit, which I actually think is one of the most important things you need to have if you're going to start your own business. But we didn't really know the industry. We didn't know the food industry at all. So we had to start from the ground level in terms of learning just how anything works. And then once you open up that can of worms, you start going, oh man, especially with food, certain regulations that are federal, certain regulations that are statewide, some certification things when we wanted to claim we were certain things that we are. And then just the manufacturing process and scaling that up from being like, well, I'm making this small batch that makes like 3 dozen cookies at our house, to now you need to make like 1,000 cookies or 10,000 cookies or 20,000 cookies. So for us, it was really just pretty much everything. I mean, it was a challenge, because every time we came up against something, it was like, okay, let's first learn about this thing and then figure out how to solve it.
Got it. So when you say you figured it out, so did you kind of do all this yourself, or did you hire professionals along the way to help you with some of that?
We didn't have that luxury, but I will tell you what we did. What we were really very lucky is that we found some key allies who have and continue to help us, who happen to have known the industry. One of my business partners, good friends, was in the food industry for years and years. I think actually he's still not even retired from the food industry. So he was definitely a crutch for us to lean on. And during one of when I was doing demos, when we were first starting off, just going into stores and sampling out products and building brand awareness, I met this broker who has been like an angel to us since, who's just always available to talk through ideas. And it kind of stresses the importance of getting out there, especially in the beginning. It's like, if you can't build a company in the privacy, as much as we'd like, in the privacy of your home by your computer safely, you have to really like get out and meet people and do things and build alliances and build a network of people, because they really become your support group in the beginning if you don't have the resources to hire consultants or industry professionals who can come in there and help you.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of of sense, actually. And I know some of the vegan business owners I've spoken to, whether it's been skincare or other types of things, particularly physical products like that, there's nothing quite like getting in front of actual customers so that they can actually taste the product, but also, like you say, making those connections and collaborations with other industry professionals that can really reap some benefits. So just on that, in terms of retailers, so like you said, you've gone from, kind of making a batch of cookies in the kitchen to now being, sold in stores across the US. So I know that a lot of vegan brands, they sometimes face challenges getting and maintaining their products in retailers, and especially the large supermarket chains. Is there anything, can you tell us a little bit of information about what are some of the issues that are involved and what you need to take into account on that front?
Sure. And it's good that you asked it in that way, I think, because it is two different processes often. One, getting into a store, but then two, maintaining, which is often overlooked. I mean, I think at the beginning you have these great ideas that once you land in the store, then that's your, especially a bigger chain, that's your big ticket to like moving forward. You can just put up your feet and wait for the purchase orders. And unfortunately, it's just not the case at all. So that for us, what we've discovered is that often people set their sights on the big stores. And of course, here that's stores like Whole Foods. That's obviously the first, I think, that comes to anybody's minds when you're in the natural food sector here in the States. You say, Whole Foods, well, it's the be all end all. And it's definitely important, but it is the bigger stores are a process. I mean, it's like courting somebody to be wed for the rest of your life. I mean, it takes, it can take months and months and months. And I'd be happy to go back to our personal story with Whole Foods, which continues to this day. But in the meantime, just to finish the question, the big stores can take a lot of attention and they can take a lot of time. And in the meantime, you can't just be waiting, especially if you don't have a lot of capital in your company, because your every day costs money unless you're bringing in revenue. So for us, a huge part of this was the smaller stores, and they become these lifesavers. If you can go, and often they're easier to enter. So it's easier to get a hold quickly of the buyers or the people making the decisions in some of these smaller stores. And it's easier to build a personal relationship. And usually there are less hoops to jump through to get your products in their stores. And smaller stores that invest in and believe in growing companies are so vital and so often overlooked. And for us, it was building a giant network of these stores. And they really supported our growth so that we could bide the time while we wait for these larger grocers to go through their review processes or the hoops that you have to jump through just to get considered and then ultimately be purchased and brought into the store.
Nice.
So
I like that. You mentioned about Whole Foods, and I would love to hear your story around that if you're happy to share it. But also the fact that I think Whole Foods has recently been bought by Amazon, and I think that's kind of shaking things up a bit. And I don't know if there's anything you can share on that front or your views on how that may impact smaller vegan brands.
Yeah, they have. And I don't really know. And I don't think anybody knows because it's a little too soon. But what I will say is the one comforting thing is that Whole Foods, the process of getting into Whole Foods changes every few months. Their category submission processes change, and they've had like local foraging programs that have gone in and out. And, they're consistently such great people to connect with and work with, but you definitely have to monitor how they're receiving new brands and interacting with new brands because it changes quite often. So that said, it changing again because of Amazon acquiring them. I don't know that it's really going to be any different than it currently is in terms of what might change as it always is consistently evolving with them.
Do you have to apply to each individual Whole Foods store and develop a relationship with them, or is it more on a state or a regional level?
Well, it begins regionally, really. You can go you can apply to nationwide, and I think for smaller businesses, that's a very hard route to go. First of all, I don't know that you're going to garner the attention unless you have a very unique product, but then also you have to be prepared to be able to fulfill the number of stores they have nationwide. And also that's a whole distribution model in terms of how you're getting to all the warehouses that service the different Whole Foods throughout the United States. But the other route is then approaching regionally. And they've gone in and out of having different local foraging programs. So for us, our entryway to start was through a local foraging program in the Southern Pacific region of Whole Foods. So that's basically everywhere in the Southwest of the United States. So it's California and Hawaii, and I can't remember if there are other states in the SOPAC region. But so you can submit regionally. Every year they have, I think, what's called an open category review schedule by region. And it used to be that they were all at different times. They've since changed it, so they're all now on the same schedule. And it's by category. So we wait for cookies when that opens up. But we also had the benefit of going through what they had in terms of a local foraging program at first. And there's somebody like regionally who will look at new brands, and they can kind of bypass that open category review and say, hey, we're going to try you out in a couple stores, or we're going to bring you in regionally because you're a local product. And that's how we started off. And the funny part is, it's just kind of a story for persistence. When we first got what they call onboarded and brought in through the local foraging program, the woman who is handling our account, they changed the whole foraging program and got rid of it before they placed their first purchase order for our product. And we got lost. I mean, the person who was managing our account was no longer the local forager. The program was gone, and we had gone through all these different steps in terms of having our labels reviewed, in terms of adjusting our insurance to meet their standards, and then suddenly nothing. And for 2 years, we kept going to the open category submissions and nothing. And then it's only recently that we've been in touch with, they kind of revamped the foraging program in a different way. And we've reconnected with this wonderful person there who's been really supportive of us and is bringing us in now. So it's been quite a journey, but it's a perfect example of how long it can take to court larger companies. And I get it. I mean, they're bigger companies. They have a lot more to think about, and they have protocols in place for a reason. So in the meantime, the best bet, I think, is going and putting a lot of attention and support into the smaller stores.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good advice, actually. That's fantastic. And that is persistence. Like when you said that, and I thought you were going to say, oh, and it's just, then a few months later, it all worked out well. And you were like 2 years, like you put all that effort and money in as well. Like you say, adjusting the insurance and everything. And So definitely important to be persistent.
It is. And it's easy to get frustrated and say, oh, well, this is a ridiculous system, or, oh, this is impossible, or we're giving up because they already told us no. But things change and evolve. And as long as you keep showing up and you find other ways to survive in the meantime and build your brand, they'll always be there, and there's always a second chance.
Love that. Absolutely brilliant advice. So I noticed your cookies, one of your selling points is your cookies are handmade. So as you say, obviously that's easy to do in the kitchen where you're physically doing it. How have you managed to scale that up in terms of them continuing to be handmade and still have that quality that they would have from, Maxine herself making them in the kitchen?
Well, I would love to say there's some brilliant idea behind it, but it's just what you think in terms of, I mean, our batches have gotten bigger. It's like our first batches were like maybe 1 pound. And then now we're producing at like 50 to 60 pounds per batch every time we mix the batter. And that's a lot. That's like 50 to 60 pounds of cookie dough.
Yeah.
But just from there, it just little hand scoops and it's just extra people hand scooping them. I don't know if we'll always continue that. But what we always will continue to do is try to preserve the experience of that, because it is important for us. We are definitely a more expensive product, and being hand scooped and where we are in our own development is all part of that. But so preserving that quality will always be there. But unfortunately, it's not any brilliant idea. It's just more people, more hands, and more scooping.
Got it. So when you say more people and more hands, like, do you run your own factory, or do you outsource it to a separate factory to make?
We do kind of a combined idea at the moment, although I think that will change as we grow, because I can talk about that a little later, but we are in a facility that we don't own, but is a shared facility. So we rent out a space. We have our time in the kitchen each week, and we go in there with a team of people and make the cookies. Oh, so cool. That's one route. It's a question we've asked ourselves, and I think food manufacturers and any manufacturers really can continue to ask yourself, is at what makes more sense in terms of us outsourcing, having somebody else create the product, or us taking on that responsibility ourselves. And the intuition, of course, is I want to do it myself, or else it's not really our product. But the problem is there are only so many hours in the day. And if you are suddenly, a United States national product, and you're trying to go to all the states in this country with all those miles apart, you can't possibly be. First of all, there's not enough hours to be in the kitchen. Second of all, you'd be only in the kitchen, and you have no time to run your business. So for us, we're at that point where we're probably going to be turning over the manufacturing to somebody else. And what we've just done has been very tireless in our pursuit of a partner that we believe in, because co-packing can be tricky.
Yeah.
After a lot of vetting, we've found a partner that is so wonderful. And next month, it looks like we'll be moving over to full manufacturing through another company.
Oh, cool. When you mentioned, you just said there about co-packing can be tricky. What are some of the issues involved in that?
Well, when it's your own product and you're controlling everything, I mean, that's great. But you're the most passionate about your product. You care the most about it, and you have the most to lose if something goes wrong. But when you turn that over to somebody, it's not their top priority, and you become one of. And if you don't have a person that is meticulous with their facilities, that doesn't put the care and attention into your products that you would yourself put in, you can really start having a conflict in terms of the quality of product that you put out there.
Got it. Because you can't really go in there and sort of oversee them in the same way that you could your own team.
When your hands are literally in the dough.
Yes. Yeah. Got it. Now, so I'll talk a little bit about competition. I was going to ask you about how you stand out, because obviously there's a much more diverse range of vegan cookies in the world. But I think you kind of touched on that earlier, about you're really sort of forging a place in the market where you're going for something that absolutely tastes as delicious as the cookie with the butter and the cream in it, but also you're focusing on the health side of things. So is that the key way you would say that you stand out and maintain your customers?
Absolutely. And then also combining categories that are really hard to find together: gluten-free, vegan, non-GMO, soy-free.
Got it.
This is a really, really hard combination to find. So we're not like one of many when we get that specific.
Got it. And do you find you're having to, with all those labels, that's something someone asked me that recently, it's like, if you do tick all those boxes and all those categories, is it worth, should you advertise that? Or can it kind of have a counter effect of, if you've got all this free from this, free from that, free from the other, and people think, well, if it hasn't got any of that in it, is it actually going to taste any good? What's your thoughts on that in terms of?
I think it's a great question. It's absolutely a concern, because you can get into this very, very small group of people with very specific needs, and then that becomes a small audience. And I do think that when people see too many, know this, know that, know the other thing, I'll be doing demos all the time. People say, well, what does it have in there? So that definitely is a concern of people. So you do have to be conscious about that. And actually, accordingly, we're actually going through a rebranding process. We're changing our package and our look. And we've been asking that question. It continues to be part of our questioning as we land on our brand message. It's like, well, how much are we pushing that? And how much of that just becomes a matter of fact thing about our product? And I think I think we're probably moving a little less to the forefront, because the people who are those things, that's like vegans. It's like, I'm, as a vegan, it's like you look for the products. You're gonna, if that's your category, you look for it. And
you look for the name. Yeah, and even if it's somewhere buried on the back of the package in small letters, you find exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
No,
so the people who are also gluten-free are doing the same thing, and the people who maybe avoid soy are doing the same thing, and the people with sugar problems are doing the same thing as well. So I don't think we have to smack it across people's face, but it's part of our brand and our messaging, and we don't want to lose that or be ashamed of that either.
Got it. So in terms of marketing and getting yourself out there and growing your brand, what have been some of the marketing strategies you've used that have been successful in doing that?
Well, it's interesting. The challenging thing about food production and manufacturing, I'd say in general, is that there's two different kinds of marketing. We do direct to consumer through our website, so people can join. We have a cookie club, a monthly cookie club, which is actually really a fun idea. And we have on our website an online commerce store, so you can just buy our cookies, buy the bags, and have them shipped directly to you. And we're also on Amazon. But the bulk of our so all that to say, that's one advertising avenue, is getting to the people who purchase directly from us, but the bulk of our purchases come through the stores, and so then that becomes a whole different marketing strategy. So you have, for us, for our website, our direct orders, Facebook is definitely the biggest avenue for marketing and reaching people and building a message. We also have like an ongoing blog that's all nutrition based and about becoming a chief health officer and looking for the things that we believe are like a Maxines Heavenly product that have all those clean ingredients. So that's that world. And we're learning a lot in that. And I think it's a constantly shifting world. It's like people, I think even when we started this 4 years ago, people weren't really buying that many groceries online. And now it's a lot more common. So there's been a huge learning curve in there in terms of what works, what doesn't work, what kind of ways are we framing our messaging, how we get convincing people to buy this one particular grocery item online. But then there's a whole store level marketing, and that's kind of tried and true. It's like the whole sale world that we live in. It's running promotions. And then each store has its own unique marketing program. So sometimes it's like an old-fashioned flyer bulletin that works for some of their customers, depending on the kind of store. Sometimes it's digital ads. Sometimes it's coupons. Sometimes it's demos, and that all becomes a marketing package that you shape with each different store that you're in. And that's a real tedious process, and it actually goes back to your whole question about how do you maintain stores. And that is a vital part of maintaining stores, is having a support system for the customers that come into that store that attract new customers, but also keep people buying and believing in your product.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, some really good nuggets of advice in there, particularly, like you say, about having those, or tailoring the marketing specifically to those different audiences, the commercial side and the audience side. I think that's really good to point that out. And also the importance of all the different types of marketing. So the online marketing, I guess the social media side of things. You said you're on Amazon as well, and your e-commerce store, and you go out and physically go to events. And I think it's that really important aspect of having a combination of online and offline marketing to get people, talking about your brand and spreading the word about it.
That's absolutely right. And you mentioning the events is great, because that is a really important part. It's getting out there, getting samples of your product in people's hands. And some of the best things and the most encouraging things we've done are go to vegan festivals, where we have a booth and people can buy our product right there, but we also sample and they try them and they interact with us. And where do you sell this? How can I get this?
Nice.
And then you build this community, and then also you're reminded, people like this product, because most of the time you're just sitting in your offices or having these conversations, and you get very little opportunity to interact with the audience, with the customers, because they're buying through stores or clicking online, and you don't really know, do they like us? Do they not like us? What works? What doesn't work? And it's great because you get instant feedback and you're reminded, we have a good product. I really believe in this. Kind of like refreshes the soul.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. And also important as well, like you said, even though your products are in the stores, you can't rely on that store to do your marketing and promo
Absolutely
for
not.
you. You've still got to do it so that they go, oh yes, people are buying this, well, let's keep it on the shelf. So yeah, it's good that you've touched on that, because I think you're right. People think, that's it, I've made it, I'm in the store, people are just build it and they will come. But that's obviously changed, because especially with the competition and stuff. So that's a really really important advice. Thank you.
And when a store has 50 to 80,000 different brands on their shelves, you understand, of course not. So Yeah.
Exactly. So for those people who are perhaps at the stage where you were 4 years ago, I think it was when you started the business. And maybe, they're in the food or confectionery sector. What, in your opinion, are the key things they should take into account before making that leap? Because you made that leap. You mentioned you and your business partner, you didn't have any experience in this sector. You both had, completely different types of jobs. What are the kinds of things that people need to take into account before making that jump from employment to running their own business?
Yeah, well, I think that we all like to believe we have a tenacity of spirit that keeps going no matter what. But you really have to ask yourself, like, do I have that? Because we get really swept up by dreams and ambitions, and they're so important because they do make us take risks and go on and do things outside of the box. And I think that's so vital. But the reality of things is always a lot more bleak than the dreaming of things. So I think you have to say, am I prepared for both sides of this? When I'm sitting at home and no one's buying my product and I don't know exactly what the next steps are, do I have the patience and do I have the self-confidence to say I can move through this or don't I? And I think being impassioned by the dreamy side of things, but also being impassioned by being in the dirt and the trenches they're equally as important. And you have to ask yourself, am I the kind of personality that can really handle that? Because the dream fades and comes back and fades and comes back, and you're always chasing it. But the reality is always there,
Yeah, no, that's really good advice, actually. And it is very different, that sort of entrepreneurial journey. It's not that, regular, you do your 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, whatever hours, and you get your paycheck every week and every month. It's very different. I think a lot of people kind of end up giving themselves a job in which they're actually working longer hours.
Right. That's exactly right. You have to be prepared for those hours. It will be, 60 to 80, 90 hours. And also you should take whatever your idea of when you're going to get your first paycheck from the company and times that amount of time by 3 or 4.
Yes.
It's probably a lot more realistic because it's always, when money comes in, you always are ready to pay somebody else or something else before you pay yourself.
Got it. Well, that leads nicely into my next question, is around funding. So as you mentioned, you started small, you were pretty much bootstrapping. So obviously funding a business, there's always some kind of startup costs, and particularly with a business such as yourselves, you actually got to get the ingredients and all the rest of it and the equipment to make it. So can you, if you're comfortable saying so, perhaps talk us through some of the methods you used to get capital to get started and then grow the business?
Sure. The really funny part is I came from a nonprofit background, and so did our marketing director too. And so much of the time was spent like raising money. And I was like, I can't wait to get to the for-profit world where that's not what you do. But then it's like, oh, wait, no, it's the same thing. It's just a different end game, but it's basically the same idea. It's always, where's the money and how are we getting it? And they're different ways. So for us, it started off with a lot of like personal investments and friends and family. And I think that's how a lot of companies start. It's hard if you don't have experience as an entrepreneur or a track record of growing businesses from the ground up, it's really hard to just pitch an idea and get investors, unless you happen to have a great group of people who know and trust you as a person and a business person. So for us, it was a lot of small pieces of money, and my partner put in a lot of money, and it was kind of just grassroots in that way. We've taken a little bit of investment money along the way, but we're also very apprehensive to do so because with investment money comes a loss in percentage ownership of the company.
Yes.
And we feel very passionately that we want to be steering the ship. We want it to be our company, and we want to build it based on the values that we really believe in. And every time, it's not to say you can't find capital or VC money that's comes with, morals and support for the things that you believe in. It's possible, but it's also possible that it doesn't. And it's possible that you can lose more of your company than you want to. So we've been really apprehensive about that. And then, of course, the other option is loans, but they take a really long time for you to like build a business credit and build the relationships with banks and whatnot to qualify. It's all based on revenue and all that, and how much you're making each year. So that can, if you're reporting losses for the beginning years, which is common, it could be a while before you get loans.
Right.
So I think those are kind of 3 principal sources, and we've utilized bits of everything. there are other ways. There's crowdfunding is becoming another thing that people are doing. Uh, if you kind of have to ask my marketing director actually put this so brilliantly when I wanted to put together a crowdfunding campaign early on. She was like, well, crowdfunding works a lot like marketing. And for you to have a successful crowdfunding campaign, you have to have a big audience because only a percentage of the people you go after are actually going to donate. So doing this, building a following, building a brand, having a vision, all those things that you have to do as a key part of marketing anyway are all part of a crowdfunding campaign. So a successful one, that is, at least, where you're going to make the kind of money that you really need. So there's no like one solution fits all, but those are kind of the principal ways, and we've kind of dipped our toes in a little bit of each of them. And that's another important thing about starting your own business. You have to be very financially creative. How can you move money around?
Yes.
How can you control cash flow when it's a real hard circumstance to control it? And how do you minimize all the money that's going out the door at the beginning, while you do things like support your research and development and put together your first round of packaging? I mean, for us in the food industry, it's like we almost went into shock when it's like, okay, the first round of bags that we wanted to print, the minimum order quantity was like 50,000, which at that point for us almost sent us through the floor. It's like, what? And the money that costs to get the plates for them, to get them printed, to get them shipped to us. And then you're just sitting on 50,000 bags where you're like, how do I get rid of these bags? So I think that's a long-winded way of saying that, but there are a bunch of different options. And I think the thing that is most important, that it always boils down to, is, do you know what story you're pitching? Because that, in any level, is what's going to get people interested and financially supportive of what you're trying to do. And it's that great advice from my marketing director. It's like, that starts for your marketing plan. It starts for your capital plan. It starts for the success of your business. Is, what are we doing? Why is that same question you asked me? Why? What's our why?
Yeah.
Why are we unique? And do we really know what kind of story we're trying to tell here?
Absolutely. No, that's such good advice. And I think particularly, I'll just pick up on what you said about the investors, like some of because I've interviewed some vegan investors, and all of them say, whilst you're right, there are some people out there that are like angel investors and just kind of think, yeah, okay, that's a cool idea. Basically, they see it as a risk, and they like to actually see the business owner putting in something themselves, so that they're taking the risk. Because I often get approached by people saying, oh, I've got this great idea for a product. Do you know any investors that, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, what's your kind of budget? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't got any money. I'm broke at the moment. And it's like, there's not going to be a lot of investors that are going to go, oh yeah, here's a whole bunch of money, unless you've got that, track record, or you've got something on the line yourself. So I'm glad that you touched on that as well, which is fantastic.
Exactly right. And of course, the other exception could be is if you have an idea that is just totally, just revolutionary, and you can pitch people based on that idea, and it's something unique that people get, or you're going to excite so many people. But often it's not, for us, it wasn't. It's a vegan, gluten-free cookie. I mean, that's not anything outstandingly innovative. I think we found our own unique voice. But we're not going to get millions of dollars in investment. I think people underestimate how much money you can raise, unless and if you're like us, where you're not doing something overly creative or new, it's hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's very, very good advice. So you've been going about 4 years now, and you're continuing to grow. And what's your long-term vision for Maxines and for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, I think for us, it's more than just having a cookie company. It's like, especially the both of us being from the nonprofit world, we're really like, we get really like impassioned, and we want to believe in the things that we're creating. And we want a world where people do believe in the things that they're doing and creating, and they're happy. And so it's about, for us, creating a movement as much as it is about creating a product and having a philosophy around that. So for us, it's, yes, we want to be a nationwide company. We want our cookies to be sold in stores all across the United States, worldwide. We want to change how people but on a second note, we want to change how people view foods. So we want to impassion people to eat the best foods. We want to define like what's a Maxine's Heavenly philosophy for how to eat, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your life and your mind and your body and your spirit, and how to incorporate that all in food. So we become more than just this product. It's not just about selling this thing. It's about having this philosophy that's all about living the best version of yourself, about feeling fulfilled nutritionally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all these things. So we want to be a nationwide brand. We want our cookies sold in every store, but we also want to have a deep-rooted philosophy as we do it.
I love that. I mean, I think you're the perfect definition of a mission-driven business, so a mission-driven for-profit business, which I think it's quite exciting times where we're really starting to see developments in this area where, yes, you're running it on a, essentially a traditional business model in one sense, because obviously you've got to have profit coming in to stay afloat, but you've got that, the mission behind it of being part of this broader mission that's basically good for people, animals and planet, which I love. So,
it's fun. If I can, just add one little thing.
Go for it.
But I love that I'm lucky that I'm in a business, the natural foods business, that was really pioneered and founded by people with that sort of philosophy, who took an industry that didn't exist and built it based on morals and beliefs. And that's another thing about vegans that I love. It's about, like you're saying, making things better and understanding that the world of capitalism and then having the world of like morally driven business, they can all live together. And for us as people with nonprofit backgrounds, we're excited and continuing to look for the opportunities for us to find ways to give back. What's the way that we can contribute as we continue to grow and find success?
Wonderful. I love that. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today, Robert. You shared some really great nuggets of wisdom there, and I'm excited to try your cookies. I know they're not available in Australia, but I'm going to be in LA at the beginning of November, so I'll have a look in one of the local stores. And
that's fantastic. Thank
I
you.
get to actually taste, because they sound lovely, and I hope you do get worldwide and are sold across everywhere, because they sound amazing. And I love the mission behind your business, and really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your tips. It's been wonderful speaking with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. It's been a huge pleasure. And hopefully next after the United States is Australia.
Fantastic. So that was Robert Petrarca from Maxines Heavenly. You can find out more at maxinesheavenly.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 89. Now for our vegan business news roundup. A group of students in Italy have developed a vegan hard-boiled egg, reports One Green Planet. 4 master's students at the University of Udine spent a year creating the cholesterol-free, ready-to-eat egg, which has both an egg white and a realistic egg yolk. It's also gluten-free, being made from several legume-derived flours, vegetable oils, a sulphurous vegan salt, and a plant-based gelling agent. Now, it'll probably be a while before these will be in production, because the students are about to apply for a patent for their invention. But isn't this great? Piece by piece, we're removing any objection people may have to wanting animal products by providing realistic plant-based alternatives. Fantastic. One of the UK's most famous cooking schools has launched a vegan course, reports Metro. Leith School of Food and Wine announced the dates for the first course for autumn 2017, which quickly sold out, so they've now added additional dates for the one-day course in November 2017, as well as January and April 2018. Managing Director Camilla Schneiderman said, "We've noticed a definite surge in the demand for nutritional knowledge combined with practical cookery skills over the past few years, which led to the launch of our Nutrition in Practice course." The menu for the day includes a range of cuisines, including dairy-free cheese sauce, beet bourguignon, love that little play on words, egg-free mayonnaise, risotto, and chocolate mousse with tahini biscuits. The school's also working on an evening course with sessions set to cover nutrition, dinner party recipes, and vegan cakes and baked goods. This is fantastic. It's great to see cooking schools recognise the need for vegan culinary training, and how fabulous that there's now going to be more plant-based chefs in the world. Bring it on. Finally, a vegan version of Shark Tank is set to take place at the Vivolution Festival in London in the UK in November. That's 2017 if you're listening in the future. Plant-based entrepreneurs will have the opportunity to participate in Pitch and Plant, the UK's first ever plant-based business investment challenge at a vegan festival. 6 businesses will be selected before the event to pitch investors for a chance to win £1,500 plus mentorship from Bran Investments, and the runner-up will receive a £500 prize. Bran Investments is a family business dedicated to supporting young entrepreneurs and has a passion for helping the world adopt a more sustainable and vegan lifestyle. Partner Ashish Goyal said, "Pitch and Plant will give early-stage businesses a chance to win prize money, potential for further funding, and more importantly, get mentoring to help them get their business achieve greater success." The event will be held on the 25th of November at the prestigious Royal Institution in Mayfair, London. Startups can apply by filling in a form, and applications must be made by the 27th of October, and again that's 2017. You can find a link to the form to apply on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 89. What a brilliant initiative. I've been thinking for a while now that we need a vegan Shark Tank, and this comes pretty close. I'm loving the innovation from Damien Clarkson and Judy Nadal from Vivolution, which is fast becoming renowned as the Vegan TED Talks Festival. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to miss this year's event as I'm in London for the VegFest UK trade and consumer shows in October, but then I head off to New York and LA, but hopefully I'll make it to a Vivolution at some stage in the future. But if you are in the UK, then I highly recommend you check this out. And certainly if you're a business owner, it will be great to go along. And even if you're not taking part in the Pitch and Plant, if you can get yourself along there, it'll certainly be worth watching and learning. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a review and rating on iTunes or any other platform you're listening on. Finally, I encourage you to head over to veganbusinessmedia.com, where you can find more resources, including details of my media and PR consultations, copywriting, editing and proofreading services to help you grow your vegan business. I'm Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business, and I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.